Hello, this is Barry Nirmal. Please subscribe to my channel by clicking on the subscribe link below.
Religious Beliefs of 20 Great People by Barry Nirmal and Rahul Nirmal. Fyodor Dostoyevsky. Fyodor Dostoyevsky was a Russian novelist, short story writer, essayist, and journalist. Dostoyevsky's literary works explore the human condition in the troubled political, social, and spiritual atmospheres of 19th century Russia and engage with a variety of philosophical and religious themes. Throughout his life, Dostoyevsky struggled to maintain his faith. He remained a devoted follower of Jesus Christ despite grappling with doubts. God has such gladness every time he sees from heaven that a sinner is praying to him with all his heart, as a mother has when she sees the first smile on her baby's face. Fyodor Dostoevsky's The Idiot. After his arrest, aborted execution, and subsequent imprisonment, he focused intensely on the figure of Christ and on the New Testament, the only book allowed in prison. In a January 1854 letter to the woman who had sent him the New Testament, Dostoevsky wrote that he was a child of unbelief and doubt up to this moment, and I am certain that I shall remain so to the grave. He also wrote that even if someone were to prove to me that the truth lay outside Christ, I should choose to remain with Christ rather than with the truth. My friends, God is necessary for me if only because he is the one being who can be loved eternally. Fyodor Dostoevsky's Demons. Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla was an inventor, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, and futurist, best known for his contributions to the design of the modern alternating current electricity supply system. Tesla was raised an Orthodox Christian. Later in life, he did not consider himself to be a believer in the Orthodox sense, said he opposed religious fanaticism, and said Buddhism and Christianity are the greatest religions both in number of disciples and in importance. He also said, "To me, the universe is simply a great machine, which never came into being and never will end, and what we call soul or spirit is nothing more than the sum of the functionings of the body. When this functioning ceases, the soul or the spirit ceases likewise." Karl Marx. 19th century German philosopher Karl Marx, the founder and primary theorist of Marxism, viewed religion as the soul of soulless conditions, or the opium of the people. Religion continues to survive because of oppressive social conditions. When this oppressive and exploitative condition is destroyed, religion will become unnecessary. At the same time, Marx saw religion as a form of protest by the working classes against their poor economic conditions and their alienation. It is clear that all of Marx's thoughts and analysis are designed to instigate the working class, to wage war against the capitalist class and the bourgeoisie. Marx was a philosopher, but primarily a revolutionary agitator. No wonder his followers, Lenin and Mao, used his ideology to transform two large countries, Russia and China. Hindu monk Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda, born Narendranath Datta, was an Indian Hindu monk and philosopher. He is credited with raising interfaith awareness, bringing Hinduism to the status of a major world religion during the late 19th century. Though there is nothing that has brought to man more blessings than religion, yet at the same time there is nothing that has brought more horror than religion. Nothing has made more for peace and love than religion. Nothing has engendered fiercer hatred than religion. Nothing has made the brotherhood of man more tangible than religion. Nothing has bred more bitter enmity between man and man than religion. Nothing has built more charitable institutions, more hospitals for men, and even for animals than religion. Nothing has deluged the world with more blood than religion. First bread and then religion. I shall call you religious from the day you begin to see God in men and women. Religion is not in books, nor in theories, nor in dogmas, nor in talking, not even in reasoning. It is being and becoming. Religions do not come from without, but from within. German philosopher Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche was a German philosopher, cultural critic, and philologist whose work has exerted a profound influence on modern intellectual history. Nietzsche's case against Christianity was that it kept people down, that it smothered them with morality and self-loathing. His ideal human is one who is free to express himself, like a great artist or a Viking warrior. Morality is for the little people. It's the way that strong manipulate the weak. Nietzsche's famous statement is, "God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him." Neil deGrasse Tyson. Neil deGrasse Tyson is an American astrophysicist, planetary scientist, author, and science communicator. The U.S. National Academy of Sciences awarded Tyson the Public Welfare Medal in 2015 for his extraordinary role in exciting the public about the wonders of science. When asked if he believed in a higher power, Tyson responded, "Every account of a higher power that I've seen described, of all religions that I've seen, include many statements with regard to the benevolence of that power. When I look at the universe and all the ways the universe wants to kill us, I find it hard to reconcile that with statements of beneficence." In an interview with Big Think, Tyson said, "So, what people are really after is what is my stance on religion or spirituality or God. And I would say that if I find a word that came closest, it would be agnostic." In March 2014, philosopher and secularism proponent Massimo Pigliucci asked Tyson, "What is it you think about God?" Tyson replied, "I remain unconvinced by any claims anyone has ever made about the existence or the power of a divine force operating in the universe." Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan was an American astronomer, planetary scientist, cosmologist, astrophysicist, astrobiologist, author, and science communicator. His best-known scientific contribution is research on extraterrestrial life, including experimental demonstration of the production of amino acids from basic chemicals by radiation. Sagan wrote frequently about religion and the relationship between religion and science, expressing his skepticism about the conventional conceptualization of God as a sapient being. He wrote, "Some people think God is an outsized, light-skinned male with a long white beard, sitting on a throne somewhere up there in the sky, busily tallying the fall of every sparrow. Others, for example, Baruch Spinoza and Albert Einstein, considered God to be essentially the sum total of the physical laws which describe the universe. I do not know of any compelling evidence for anthropomorphic patriarchs controlling human destiny from some hidden celestial vantage point, but it would be madness to deny the existence of physical laws." On atheism, Sagan commented in 1981, "An atheist is someone who is certain that God does not exist, someone who has compelling evidence against the existence of God. I know of no such compelling evidence. To be certain of the existence of God and to be certain of the non-existence of God seem to me to be the confident extremes in a subject so riddled with doubt and uncertainty as to inspire very little confidence indeed." On spirituality, he said, "Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. When we recognize our place in an immensity of light years and in the passage of ages, when we grasp the intricacy, beauty, and subtlety of life, then that soaring feeling, that sense of elation and humility combined, is surely spiritual." Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein was a German-born theoretical physicist, widely acknowledged to be one of the greatest physicists of all time. Einstein is best known for developing the theory of relativity, but he also made important contributions to the development of the theory of quantum mechanics. He was an agnostic, not atheist. In a letter he wrote, "The word God for me, nothing more than the expression and product of human weaknesses. The Bible a collection of honorable but still primitive legends aplenty. No interpretation, no matter how subtle, can change this for me. Such refined interpretations are naturally highly varied and have almost nothing to do with the original text. For me, the unmodified Jewish religion, like all other religions, is an incarnation of primitive superstitions." He made witty statements about God, like, God does not play dice, that God is crafty but not malicious. Einstein famously wrote, science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. And the year he died in 1955, a student quoted him as having once said that, I want to know how God created this world. I'm not interested in this or that phenomenon, in the spectrum of this or that element. I want to know his thoughts. The rest are details. Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway was an American novelist, short story writer, journalist, and sportsman. His economical and understated style, which he termed the iceberg theory, had a strong influence on 20th century fiction, while his adventurous lifestyle and his public image brought him admiration from later generations. Hemingway produced most of his work between the mid-1920s and the mid-1950s, and he was awarded the 1954 Nobel Prize in Literature. Ernest Hemingway was born a Protestant, but converted to Catholicism when he married his second wife, who was a devout Catholic. Hemingway, who was never observant but arguably always religious, told Gary Cooper, his lifelong friend, that becoming a Catholic was one of the best things he had done in his life. Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud was an Austrian neurologist and the founder of psychoanalysis, a clinical method for evaluating and treating pathologies in the psyche through dialogue between a patient and a psychoanalyst. Sigmund Freud is most famous for his psychoanalytic school of thought, but he also took a keen interest in religion. As an adult, Freud considered himself an atheist, but his Jewish background and upbringing and background played an important role in the development of his ideas. He even wrote several books focused on the topic of religion. Religion, Freud believed, was an expression of underlying psychological neuroses and distress. At various points in his writings, he suggested that religion was an attempt to control the Oedipal complex as opposed to the Electra complex, a means of giving structure to social groups, wish fulfillment, an infantile delusion, and an attempt to control the outside world. Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell was a British philosopher, logician, essayist, and social critic best known for his work in mathematical logic and analytic philosophy. Together with G.E. Moore, Russell is generally recognized as one of the founders of modern analytic philosophy. Bertrand Russell is one of humanity's most grounding yet elevating thinkers, his writing at once lucid and luminous. There is something almost prophetic in the way he bridges timelessness and timeliness, in contemplating ideas urgently relevant to modern life a century earlier. From how boredom makes happiness possible to why science is the key to democracy. Russell described himself in 1947 as an agnostic, saying, "Therefore, in regard to the Olympic gods, speaking to a purely philosophical audience, I would say that I am an agnostic. But speaking popularly, I think that all of us would say in regard to those gods that we were atheists. In regard to the Christian God, I should, I think, take exactly the same line." For most of his adult life, Russell maintained religion to be little more than superstition and, despite any positive effects, largely harmful to people. He believed that religion and the religious outlook served to impede knowledge and foster fear and dependency, and to be responsible for much of our world's wars, oppression, and misery. Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was an American lawyer and statesman who served as the 16th President of the United States from 1861 until his assassination in 1865. Lincoln led the nation through the American Civil War and succeeded in preserving the Union, abolishing slavery, bolstering the federal government, and modernizing the U.S. economy. Lincoln grew up in a highly religious Baptist family. He never joined any church and was a skeptic as a young man and sometimes ridiculed revivalists. He frequently referred to God and had a deep knowledge of the Bible, often quoting it. Lincoln attended Protestant church services with his wife and children, and after two of them died, he became more intensely concerned with religion. Some argue that Lincoln was neither a Christian believer nor a secular free thinker. George Orwell. George Orwell was an English novelist, essayist, journalist, and critic. His work is characterized by lucid prose, biting social criticism, total opposition to totalitarianism, and outspoken support of democratic socialism. Orwell's main argument against religion was that it turned individuals into pawns, hampered progress towards socialism, and opened the way to dictatorship. As long as supernatural beliefs persist, men can be exploited by cunning priests and oligarchs, and the technical progress, which is the prerequisite of a just society, cannot be achieved. Belief in God, he thought, was all too easily replaced by belief in a Stalin, a Hitler, or Mussolini. Once the belief in an afterlife was lost, the alternative hope for an earthly utopia played directly into the hands of cruel dictators. Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was an Italian polymath of the High Renaissance who was active as a painter, draftsman, engineer, scientist, theorist, sculptor, and architect. While his fame initially rested on his achievements as a painter, he also became known for his notebooks, in which he made drawings and notes on a variety of subjects, including anatomy, astronomy, botany, cartography, painting, and paleontology. Being born and raised in Italy, he is widely regarded to have been a Catholic, the predominant religion of 15th century Italy. Understanding Da Vinci's commitment to Catholicism is far more complex than simply determining that he was born in Italy, and Catholicism was the predominant religion of the time. His commitment to scientific investigation led him to doubt certain stories found in the Bible, such as the Great Flood, asserting that if there had been such a flood, there would have been nowhere for the water to recede. At least outwardly, Da Vinci's passion for and exploration of Christianity through Catholicism was evident through his paintings, including the Annunciation, begun in 1472 at the age of 20, and the first version of The Virgin of the Rocks, undertaken in 1483 when the artist was 31. Religion was key to Da Vinci's art, a component of his belief system, and the foundation for some of his most famous works. But whether Da Vinci observed or practiced the fundamental principles of Catholicism is a religious debate that continues to this day. Voltaire. Voltaire was a French Enlightenment thinker, and his real name was François-Marie Arouet. He was famous for his plays and poetry, as well as political, religious, and philosophical writings. Voltaire worked to defend civil liberties. He thought that the rich were favored by the political situation, and that the poor were too ignorant to know any different. Right from the start, Voltaire's views on religion are expressed robustly. He was not an atheist, in part because he thought that some minimal belief in a deity was useful for social cohesion. Voltaire was a man of reason who loathed fanaticism, idolatry, superstition. That men can kill each other to defend some bit of religious doctrine which they scarcely understand is something he found repellent, and he reserved his greatest hatred for the clerics who exploited the credulity of believers to maintain their own power base. Voltaire wanted religion without the church. Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was an American business magnate, industrial designer, media proprietor, and investor. He was the co-founder, chairman, and CEO of Apple, the chairman and majority shareholder of Pixar, a member of the Walt Disney Company's board of directors following its acquisition of Pixar, and the founder, chairman, and CEO of Next. He is widely recognized as a pioneer of the personal computer revolution of the 1970s and 1980s, along with his early business partner and fellow Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak. In the best-selling biography Steve Jobs, noted biographer Walter Isaacson recounts an event when the 13-year-old Jobs was distressed by a photograph in a 1968 issue of Life magazine. It showed a pair of starving children in Biafra, Africa, who were suffering because of a famine there. Jobs, rightly disturbed by this tragedy, went to his Lutheran pastor for help. He held up one finger and asked, "Did God know I would hold up this finger before I did?" The pastor said, "Yes, God knows everything." Then Jobs produced a life cover photo and asked, "Well, does God know about this and what's going to happen to those children?" The pastor replied, "Steve, I know you don't understand, but yes, God knew about this." That was as far as the discussion went. The pastor offered no apologetic, no reason to believe in the gospel despite evil to this young, brilliant, and inquiring soul. Isaacson reports that Job announced he didn't want to have anything to do with worshipping such a god, and he never went back to church. He did, however, spend years studying and trying to practice the tenets of Zen Buddhism. Reflecting years later on his spiritual feelings, he said that religion was at its best when it emphasized spiritual experiences rather than received dogma. The juice goes out of Christianity when it becomes too based on faith rather than living like Jesus or seeing the world as Jesus saw it, he told me. I think different religions are different doors to the same house. Sometimes I think the house exists, and sometimes I don't. It's the great mystery. Richard Feynman. Richard Feynman was an American theoretical physicist known for his work in the path integral formulation of quantum mechanics, the theory of quantum electrodynamics, the physics of the superfluidity of supercooled liquid helium, as well as his work in particle physics, for which he proposed the Parton model. For contributions to the development of quantum electrodynamics, Feynman received the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1965. Feynman was an atheist and said that the Abrahamic anthropomorphic gods were something he could not believe. He thought Abrahamic scriptures were interesting historically, but nothing more. However, he said there was no inconsistency between believing in science and believing in God. He said he disagreed with scientists who believed in God, but not that they were wrong. He explained how and why he appreciated and understood how they could and did hold the two beliefs, and said that holding the two beliefs can be logically consistent and sound. Feynman used probability to answer all questions, including about the existence of God. He rewrote the question, is there or isn't there God, to how sure can we be that there is or isn't a God? I do not believe that science can disprove the existence of God in the traditional Abrahamic view. I think that is impossible, and if it is impossible, is not a belief in science and in a God, an ordinary God of religion, a consistent possibility? Yes, it is consistent. Despite the fact that I said that more than half of the scientists don't believe in God, many scientists do believe in both science and God in a perfectly consistent way. Mark Twain. Mark Twain was an American writer, humorist, entrepreneur, publisher, and lecturer. He was lauded as the greatest humorist the United States has produced, and William Faulkner called him the father of American literature. His novels include The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and its sequel, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, the latter of which has often been called the great American novel. He didn't have much of anything good to say about religion, at least the organized kind. I have a religion, but you will call it blasphemy, he wrote in a letter in 1865. It is that there is a God for the rich man, but none for the poor. Perhaps your religion will sustain you, will feed you. I place no dependence in mine. Our religions are alike, though, in one respect. Neither can make a man happy when he is out of luck. Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was a Methodist. Throughout his life, he maintained a strong association with the denomination and acknowledged the role that it played in the forming of his values. While Mandela was a Christian, he recognized the power of all religions to influence people to do good and worked tirelessly to create a South Africa, and perhaps indirectly the world, where all men were equal despite differences in race or religion. Religion is one of the most important forces in the world. Whether you are a Christian, a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Jew, or a Hindu, religion is a great force, and it can help one have command of one's own morality, one's own behavior, and one's own attitude, Mandela said, as quoted by the Huffington Post. Aristotle. Aristotle was a disciple of Plato. His writings cover many subjects including physics, biology, zoology, metaphysics, logic, ethics, aesthetics, poetry, theater, music, rhetoric, psychology, linguistics, economics, politics, meteorology, geology, and government. Aristotle provided a complex synthesis of the various philosophies existing prior to him. It was above all from his teachings that the West inherited its intellectual lexicon, as well as problems and methods of inquiry. As a result, his philosophy has exerted a unique influence on almost every form of knowledge in the West, and it continues to be a subject of contemporary philosophical discussion. Aristotle made God passively responsible for change in the world, in the sense that all things seek divine perfection. God imbues all things with order and purpose, both of which can be discovered and point to his divine existence. Aristotle is a severe critic of traditional religion, believing it to be false. Yet he also holds that traditional religion and its institutions are necessary if any city, including the ideal city he describes in the Politics, is to exist and flourish.
Hello. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so by clicking on the subscribe link below. Also write your comments in the comment section below. Spread the word. You can share this video with your friends by clicking on the share button below, and you can share it with WhatsApp, with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and by sending email to your friends.